Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. We are just waiting for a few more people, but people are coming in quickly, so we should get started pretty soon.
Beautiful day.
Beautiful fall day.
Yeah, I stuck in a lawn mowing yesterday. It was still wet, but doable or so, and I won't be able, well, we're all in the same boat, you know. Got 2 weeks of straight rain, but and halfway okay gap in there to mow the field.
I think we need one more for quorum.
I think so too.
Here comes Andrea.
Well, there we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. It looks like we have enough folks to have quorum to start the meeting, so I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. It's 7:32. It's nice to see you all. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none and seeing none. Are there any public comments? Any folks from the public or employees who want to make a statement during this time? Or
And there's no one in the boardroom.
thanks.
We only have one member of the public here, which is James, and you just put your hand up. I don't know if you wanted to say something. Okay.
Okay. Well, good morning and welcome. Thanks for joining us. Drive safely there. Okay. And so we will move on to the consent agenda. And in that packet, we have the April 15th board meeting minutes and the check register. I will entertain a motion to accept that unless somebody has any comments or questions. Thanks, Paul. You have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Catherine. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, moving on. And I just wanted to comment, Raj, your background brings me joy on this rainy day. So thanks for having the sunshine behind you.
I'll work on that for future meetings.
Yes, please.
I'll bring the weather.
Thank you. And so we will move on to conversation and hopefully action on authorizing GMT to hold public meetings on changes to the 111 and 9. And I see, Chris, your name is next to this one.
Good morning, everyone. So as Clayton put in the read ahead, and as Amy mentioned, we are looking for action today to initiate the public hearing process for changes to the 1, the 11, and the 9. Originally we had public meetings on these 3 routes, and then also the June cuts all the way back in January, February timeframe. The board approved all the cuts and adjustments related to the June related items. And in my original timeline last month, I had put May as the sort of timeline for the board to take action on the service adjustments. But when we were thinking about it a little bit more as staff, we wanted to make sure that we were sort of doing our due diligence and going through that sort of official public hearing process for these changes. Again, just really targeting these particular items. And we'd be looking for the board to take action next month at June. And that gives us plenty of time to not only go through and have the stakeholder meetings that we need to have with folks, as well as go out to the public, and hopefully getting this information out more will just help folks get more accustomed to sort of what changes we are looking as these are some pretty major changes to our service. So just a reminder, these changes, so for the 1 and the 11, this relates to adjusting the service from every 20 minutes to every 30 minutes on the 1 and shifting service to go down Market Street in both directions. Oh, actually, I forgot I had a little animation thing that I was going to have playing while I was talking to sort of help talk about these changes. See if this, hopefully this works.
Yes, please.
Can folks see sort of my whole screen?
Yes.
Okay, so there were some glitches a little bit this morning, but hopefully this gets the point across as to sort of what we're talking about for the service. So this little graphic is sort of just showing all the frequency of service.
Chris.
Oh no,
Sorry.
you don't see it.
No, I do.
I see
That's
it.
funny.
I do too.
I love it.
Oh, sorry.
I'll continue. So this is sort of showing an animation of, you know, the frequency of the service, the routing that we're proposing for these 3 particular routes. So as I was saying, on the 1, this is the bidirectional service on Market Street and shifting service to every 30 minutes. On the 11, this is showing the rerouting and the adjustment to every 30 minutes to serve between the transit center and sort of the Dorset, Kennedy, Heinsberg Road, and Market Street corridors back to the transit center. That route would run every 30 minutes from about 5:45 a.m. to roughly 6:15, 6:30 p.m. And then this is also showing the adjustment that we showed back in January to the 9 to serve Mountain View Drive area, primarily to service the Shaws in Colchester. And that would also result in a small truncation of the number 9 that exists in this particular area. One of the other things on the 9 that I also wanted to highlight, in the org assessment, it talked about sort of being more efficient with our schedules. And on this particular route, on the number 9, there is some downtime. So we're looking to sort of use some of that downtime to help service this particular area in the Shaws. You know, this is hopefully a high ridership destination for folks. And so this feels like a worthwhile use of some of that time. And in terms of our public meeting schedule, we're looking at scheduling the public meetings for this the week of June 9th, with 1 in person at South Burlington City Hall, and then another one on Zoom. And we also plan on having staff out at some of the sort of key destinations to get some feedback that way, as well as our normal sort of digital channels as well. And then finally, we have begun scheduling meetings with some of our stakeholders, including UVM, the Med Center, the airport, and then I'll make the same call that I made last month. If anybody wants staff to come to any of their local community meetings between now and the June meeting, please reach out. We're happy to come talk about these changes if folks want that. I'll stop sharing my screen. Oops, my dog.
Thanks.
Good work on that animation, Chris.
It was
good.
mesmerizing.
That was really good.
Questions for Chris? Okay, I hearing none. Chris does need a vote so that we can move forward with these public meetings, not eatings. That's weird. So I will entertain that motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Tasha.
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of moving forward with the public meetings, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate the ongoing engagement with the community and the impacted people. I think it's just a really important step, so thank you. All right, next we are moving on to a presentation of the triennial review results, which after we get a presentation, we'll move on to some action items related to that. But Tim, I'll kick it to you.
And before we kick it to Tim, I just want to make sure that everybody on the board knows how proud I am of our team in getting through the triennial. We got some very positive feedback, both from the consultants who are doing the auditing and the Region 1. We compare very favorably to other small urban transit agencies and their opinion. And when the Region 1 administrator says that GMT is crushing it, you know, that's because of the efforts of Tim, Nick, Matt, all of the staffs that have been working on this triennial review for the past 4 months. And so this started with us in January and February, collecting documents, hundreds, if not thousands of documents that had to be uploaded and sent to FTA for review. They review all of these things and then come in and spend 2 days on site asking us, you know, questions about, you know, everything that they've reviewed and looking at our practices. It was a great experience as far as getting gifts of awareness, learning where we can do better. But it really highlighted how well our team does at meeting their federal obligations, and so that we're good stewards for those federal funds. And so very proud of the team and especially appreciative of Tim being the lead in organizing both the preparation and the during the meeting and the post audit results. So with that, Tim, thank you so much for your outstanding work.
Thanks, Clayton. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can folks see that?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the overview of the triennial review findings. Go to the next screen. Sharing. All right, I don't know if I did that right. Okay, so this is the summary that Clayton was talking about related to the triennial review. It starts with a recipient information request that consists of a bunch of documents and questions that we have to provide in advance of the site visit. After that, the consultants provide us with a list of follow-up clarifying questions and request additional documents to satisfy the original request. Prior to the site visit, the FTA reviewers send GMT additional follow-up questions to be answered during the site visit. FTA is on site for 2 days and reviews the answers to the follow-up questions and does a tour of the facility. Thank you, Clayton, for taking them for a tour. An exit conference was conducted on Thursday, May 15th, 2025, and I'm going to talk about that in future slides. I also want to just give a big thanks to all staff that assisted with this review. We have a great team, and the FTA told us how much they appreciate our cooperation and willingness to address issues in a timely manner. We still have an opportunity to now close out the remaining findings in advance of the final report. They'll still show on the final report, but they'll show as closed out. We had findings in 5 of the 23 review areas. There are a few review areas that are not applicable to us, like 5311 requirements, but it's worth mentioning that there are 53 review areas and we had findings in 5, which I feel is pretty good. Technical capacity program management and subrecipient oversight. There was a finding. Disadvantaged business enterprise, there were several findings in that area. ADA general is like our fixed route services that we provide. There was a finding there. ADA complementary paratransit, we had a finding in that category as well. That's our oversight of SSTA, who does our complementary ADA paratransit within Chittenden County. And then there were a couple things in section 5307 program requirements. Let's jump right in. So in technical.
Hey, Tim, just want to clarify for everybody to make sure that they understand that the triennial review only looked at our urban portion of the operation. That the
Yep.
That the rural portion is actually covered by the triennial review that will happen at VTrans later on.
Thanks, Clayton. That's good clarification. And that's why the 5311 component of our review was not applicable, because that's covered under VTrans review. So technical capacity, program management, and oversight. For the first time, we have a subrecipient, which has just started in the last couple of years. It's Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. They've got a RAISE grant that was awarded from the FTA, but the funds come to us as a direct recipient. So we manage the drawdowns, we manage the required reporting and oversight. So there was a report that we were supposed to submit in the system, in this federal subaward reporting system, which we didn't complete. Now we've got an opportunity to do that. Matt's already requested permission to do that. You have to actually register on the site to be able to submit the report, and we're just waiting for the final confirmation there, and then we'll submit that report and close out this one finding. Disadvantaged business enterprises. So there were deficiencies cited related to monitoring DBE compliance of contractors. Corrective actions, we will be submitting an updated DBE plan in the Transit Award Management System if the board approves of the revised plan. Matt's going to be discussing that with the board shortly. We have submitted the draft plan to the FTA. We must also demonstrate we have implemented the procedures defined in the updated DBE program plan. FTA comments, GMT did a good job updating its DBE programs to include procedures for monitoring compliance. As stated, Matt will be speaking in more detail during the presentation on the DBE plan update. And the response due date on that is 10/20/25. Americans with Disabilities Act ADA General cited deficiency in sufficient monitoring of operations for ADA service provisions. Although GMT submitted completed monitoring checklists, the checklist did not demonstrate that GMT monitored staff for compliance with ADA general service provision requirements. Corrective actions, GMT must submit evidence of implementation of procedures to ensure that its operations comply with ADA service provisions. Evidence must include 3 completed monitoring checklist forms that show GMT monitored for compliance with the following service provisions: stop announcements, lift ramp deployment, wheelchair securement, and service animal handling. As I mentioned, this is related to our fixed route. Jimmy's already all over this, and he's put together a document that his field supervisors are going to use. They're going to do onboard evaluations of the drivers. And once we've done a few of those and can demonstrate that we've completed this requirement, we'll submit it to the FTA, and they'll close this out. Americans with Disabilities Act ADA complementary paratransit. Inability to demonstrate lack of capacity constraints through available tracking data. GMT did not provide the requested paratransit service performance data periodically reviewed to ensure its service operated without capacity constraints. SSTA was putting the data together for us. We just didn't have it in time for the closeout, in advance of the closeout date. If you don't give it to them in advance of, in this case, last Thursday, then it goes on down as a finding until we've given them the necessary information to completely close it out. So what we're required to do is, on a monthly basis, we review the data that's provided to us by SSTA. We actually have a separate spreadsheet that tracks these things, whether they were on time, whether there were missed trips, late pickups. They do not deny trips. You're not allowed to deny trips under the ADA complementary program. But we didn't have adequate documentation showing that we reviewed. We did a data analysis of the data they provided, filled out that spreadsheet with their percentages related to each category, and submitted to the FTA. So this should be fairly straightforward. I now have a report from Morgan at SSTA that I'm reviewing. And we'll complete that data analysis and submit it to the FTA. This is the last one, section 5307, program requirements. Elements missing in POP, which is program of project public participation procedures. GMT did not post a public notice disclosing the amount of funding available to the public or how the final program of projects will be made available to the public. I do want to clarify a little bit here. So when the CCRPC posted the public notice about the funding opportunity, they did have a reference in there to the TIP and where people could access the TIP, but the FTA determined that that wasn't sufficient. The FTA has now since given us a sample template, and Matt's going to work with the CCRPC to make sure that they're using something that's more conforms to that sample template that they provided us from another state. There was one more item in there, public comment policy missing required elements. GMT's public comment policy does not include a definition of major service reduction. The recipient must submit a public comment policy that was amended to address the missing elements for soliciting and considering public comments prior to a fare increase or major service reduction. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to update that public comment policy to reflect what is considered a major, to define what's considered a major service reduction, and present that to the board for approval. This has a response due date of 10/20/25. Any questions? I know that was a lot in a short period of time.
I'm just
Okay.
scrolling through to see faces. Sorry. Doesn't look like there's any questions. You can keep going.
Okay. And that is the end of my slide.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so, Tim, do you want to walk us through the four changes that we're going to be making to policies to in response to the visit?
So basically, pretty straightforward. We have to, for the first one, we have to go on to the subaward reporting system and submit the federal funds that we awarded to the subrecipient. In this case, it's Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission for the RAISE grant. Matt's, as I mentioned, is already registered to do that. He's just waiting to hear back. And once they've done that, we'll submit that information in the reporting system, and then we'll send it to the FTA so that we can close that one out.
Tim, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I meant that we have four policies that we're going to be asking the board to update today because of the trend.
Okay, for today's, yeah. So we're going to be talking about the EEO, because that was an area that they asked us to update the EEO plan. So that's something that we're presenting. The DBE, Matt's going to speak about the DBE and the purchasing policy, and Jamie's going to talk about the Title VI program.
Sounds good. Thanks for the overview.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Why don't we jump right into the items that we'll have to take action on? And I'll start with Jamie's updates to the Title VI program. And would you mind, just if you know what Title VI means, it would be lovely to hear that.
Yeah, so Title VI is the Civil Rights Act that prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. And so part of our Title VI program is our limited English proficiency plan. So it's essentially what steps will GMT take to assist folks in our service area who where English is not their first language. And so essentially the potential finding that we have corrected with a draft, which is why we're bringing this to you all for an update today, there was a misunderstanding about our two service areas, our urban service area and our rural service area. Our rural Title VI, we are monitored by VTrans as part of the subrecipient agreement we have with them. And then our urban system, we have a different set of procedures. And so while our plan is sort of one, it's all encompassing of our service area, we're under the understanding that some of the provisions were separate by region. So the one place where we had a deficiency was in our safe harbor language provision. So that means if GMT has 1,000 individuals or 5%, whichever's lower, we have an obligation to have some translation into whatever language is defined. So in our case, we have over 1,000 people in our service area who speak French. And so we have to define in a safe harbor language provision which vital documents we are obligated or we can translate easily for folks. And so we had to identify those. It was the recommendation of the auditor that we look at consent, complaint forms, any kind of application, whether it be for ADA or any other program where we require people to apply for something, notices of major service reductions, for example, or like things like our fare increase or our fare implementation, excuse me. Those would be the minimum amount of documents that we would just automatically translate into this safe harbor language. And so I put in a paragraph in my memo, which is on page 13 of the board packet, which just outlines what those vital documents are. And we resubmitted a draft to the auditor and they said, that looks good to us. We're happy with this. And they did not make this a finding in the triennial. But the next steps for staff is we now have to go through these defined vital documents and have a French translation of all those documents. So for example, we've already done this on our website. I've already ordered new decals for the interior of our buses that are translated into French, so folks know their rights under Title VI and the procedure if they need to file a Title VI complaint with the organization. So we'll continue to work on that, and luckily the auditors felt like this was a good first step, and they did not make this an official finding, but there's still work to do on our end, and then in future Title VI programs, we'll make sure that this provision is stated.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, well done. Thank you. We're going to move on to Nick. You're going to talk about equal employment opportunity.
Literally one sentence was added to the policy. It's on page 31. The auditor just felt that there needed to be some more, an additionally defined responsibility. Essentially, when I have my semi-annual meetings with Clayton, I need to have in the policy that I am supposed to review the utilization analysis and our goal attainment with him. And so that's all they wanted added to the policy. As Jamie said, this wasn't a finding because we fixed it, but we have to bring it to you folks, any changes to get ratified. So happy to answer any questions. The utilization analysis is essentially just demographic data of, you know, who works here and their background.
Thank you, Nick. And then I think Matt has got the last two adjustments with DBE and purchasing policy.
That's right. So on page 49 of the board packet is the memo outlining the changes to the DBE policy, disadvantaged business enterprise, as well as the proposed updated policy itself. So unlike the previous two, these are findings in the final. Well, actually, I think the findings are the implementation of the final findings that are in the report are the implementation of these changes here. So to correct some deficiencies highlighted in the triennial, we are adding language to the monitoring and enforcement mechanisms to better clarify that section applies to all contracts with DBE participation. Staff had the understanding previously that that section applied to DBE contract goals, which it does, but it also extends to other contracts that have DBE participation. And a very quick note on contract goals, that's when you have a construction project that has a specific percentage goal of the federal spending on that contract to DBE subcontractors. We added a new section, a new subsection within monitoring enforcement mechanisms titled compliance reviews. That outlines a series of compliance reviews that we would undertake to ensure that those monitoring and enforcement mechanisms are being carried out. And now I've switched up a bunch of stuff on my screen and lost what I was looking at. So I'll try and give this the broad strokes version here, but essentially requiring some documentation from the vendor, from the prime contractor, as to comply with the documentation requirements here, and then adding some enforcement mechanisms that we would be able to undertake. And this is all updated to be in compliance with the regulation 49 CFR parts 26. So the enforcement mechanisms that we would have at our disposal would be withholding monthly progress payments, assessing sanctions on the contractor, assessing liquidated damages, and or disqualifying the contractor from future bidding opportunities. Another piece with these compliance reviews is actually requesting or requiring the prime contractor to provide copies of their subcontract agreements with their DBE subcontractors, and reviewing those subcontractor agreements to confirm that they're complying with the requirements and that they include the required non-discrimination clause that's in our contract that's required to flow down to their subcontracts, and then also confirming that their subcontract agreement includes the documented payment terms that do not exceed 30 days of receipt from payment of us to the prime contractor. And as part of that compliance review, also including updating the prompt payment section under the monitoring and enforcement mechanisms with some similar enforcement mechanisms where we can withhold retainage, withhold payment, and until the prime contractor provides us with documentation confirming that they're complying with the prompt payment requirements of the DBE program. Let's see. Moving along to the section where there's oversight of DBE. Oh, and would it be helpful if I had the policy up here? I probably should have started with that.
It might be helpful, but many of us are likely looking at it, but go for it.
Yeah, I will share my screen then. All right, so hopefully everybody sees the DBE program now.
Yep.
So in this section, we referenced in this section a federal highway form that's called a commercially useful function compliance evaluation form. And so commercially useful function is a documentation process that confirms that the DBE subcontractor that's hired to do the work is actually providing a useful function of the work, that they're not just filling a need to check a box, that the subcontractor is actually performing work that's valuable to the project and also has their own that they have management responsibilities for their piece of the project. So they're not just, there to do the bidding of the prime contractor, like I said, to check a box. So this form that's developed by the Federal Highway administration is useful for documenting compliance with that, and that the DBE subcontractor is performing that commercially useful function, and that their work in the field is actually reflective of what's been provided by the prime contractor. Basically, that they're carrying out the work that the prime said they would be in their bidding documentation. So moving along under the overall goals section, transit vehicle manufacturers, bus manufacturers, ADA conversion van manufacturers, cutaway manufacturers, those all fall under the umbrella of transit vehicle manufacturers. And there's a separate process for transit vehicle manufacturers in the world of DVE, where those TVMs actually have to prepare and submit their own DVE goal to the FTA. So purchases that we make when we buy buses are excluded from our DVE program because those transit vehicle manufacturers have their own DVE program with the FTA. There are just some steps that we need to be taking to comply with the TVM portion of the DVE. It was identified in the triennial that we were submitting TVM awards outside of this 30-day window that we need to report those awards. So this is reaffirming that in the policy, putting in the location of that reporting form in the policy. And then we also developed an internal workbook that's going to be shared with all staff as a Google Sheet, so that people can see the TVM awards, and then staff can enter those into the tracking workbook. And then I believe the final section here is with respect to the small business element. So there's a section in the regulation 49 CFR part 26.39 that outlines the requirements of the small business element. And so in the triennial, the reviewers looked at this policy, and they determined that the methods that we had identified for fostering small business opportunities really did not meet what was in this regulation. So they pointed us in the direction. We had a discussion at the review on ways that we can develop this program in compliance with the regulation. And so we proposed in this update 3 bullet points to satisfy that requirement. And first one is developing a race neutral small business goal for prime contracts that are awarded below $50,000. And so race neutral goal essentially means that we're not using any contract goals of like percentages of a specific contract to award to DVE vendors. Essentially what we'd do is we'd have something similar to our overall DVE spending goal, just identified for small businesses for contracts below $50,000. So some work will be needed to develop that goal, but since the review, I've been working on a roadmap for how we can get to that. And just to make clear, this small business element is not specifically for disadvantaged businesses, which are defined as minority and women-owned businesses. These are any business that qualifies as a small business. The DVE contract clause that we have in our FTA contract clauses has a small business element section of it, which is going to be updated to encourage prime contractors to provide subcontracting opportunities of a size that can be performed by a small business. This actually includes DVEs, so you can get a double whammy there that's meeting your DVE goal as well as your small business element. So it's doing that rather than the contractor self-performing all the work involved. Like I said, it's encouraging, but not requiring them to do that. And we also will have at our discretion the ability to include a small business participation goal for contracts that we deem appropriate. And so that would be conveyed to the bidders as a percentage of the overall contract value. functioning similar to how a DBE contract goal functions, just for generally small businesses in general, not just DBE subcontractors. And then finally, we would work with our existing vendor base that have active contracts for goods and services. And I put in here such as A&E, which is architectural and engineering, consulting, like our transit planning consulting contracts. So working with the vendors to identify elements of the contract and subcontracting opportunities that can be reasonably performed by small businesses, including DBEs. We are also going to be working on a promotion of this small business element by updating the procurement page of our website, including a description of this small business element and including materials that would give small businesses the opportunity to voluntarily self-report information for inclusion on our bidders lists that identify them as small businesses to help with carrying out these methods above. And as part of the development of this program, working with some small business concerns in an effort to increase participation on upcoming bidding opportunities. And then finally, we'll update our internal staff training materials to outline this program and provide regular updates to staff to create awareness of small business bidding opportunities. So that's it for DBE. I'll stop sharing momentarily so that Amy can see the group. If there are any questions on DBE before we move on to purchasing policy.
Thanks, Matt. Questions? These are a lot of very specific elements that I appreciate that they must go in the policy, but I also appreciate the way you are talking about implementing them with training and all those tools, because that's important. Go ahead, Tasha.
Oh, I just wanted to thank the staff for working through all of this. We also live in a world of federal requirements and grants, and I know it's a heavy lift, so thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
To note, Amy, so the DBE, the implementation of some of these mechanisms is actually a repeat finding for us this time around. So that was something that was highlighted at the exit conference. And so we're going to be working on a better system to do this implementation here. It's definitely DB is a challenging program as far as regulations go.
yeah, I could see how that would be true. All right, if there are no further questions on this one, we'll move over to the purchasing policy.
And so I will share my screen once again. So page 71 of the board packet has the memo with the enclosed purchasing policy. And the changes here are not as comprehensive as the ones in DBE. So I won't comb through the policy this time around, but I will just highlight the changes. So we added in section 6, Part B, a new subsection there called full and open competition. And that is to document a process for publicizing small purchases where appropriate. So one of the key differences between small purchases and large purchases is that large purchases are required to be publicly advertised so that anybody that sees a notice can obtain procurement documentation and participate in the process. That is not required at the small purchase level. You can identify a number of qualified contractors for the work that you're trying to procure, send them the requirements, and get quotes back without publicly advertising. The feedback that we got from the reviewer is that we should explore publicly advertising some of our small purchases to increase awareness and increase competition for those. So we're adding, we added language to this to document a new process where we would evaluate when we do receive single bids as a result of the what's called the simplified procurement process, which is the one that does not involve public advertising. If we reach out to 3 vendors, only get 1 quote back, the other 2 say, hey, we're just too busy, couldn't accommodate it. As a part of a single bid justification, we can move forward with awarding to that single bidder in that scenario. This is just updating that process so that one of the considerations that staff needs to make is, should we move ahead with awarding to the single bidder, or is it in our best interest to publicly advertise this bidding opportunity, try and get more bids coming in? As we were making this update, I did notice that we had a section talking about sole source procurements that was referencing the old large purchase threshold of 150,000, which was increased to 250,000 in the last policy update. So this is just correcting that to bring that section into compliance. And so related to this first bullet point, in section 6, part D, is a section outlining single bid justifications. And so this is documenting a new requirement in that section. One to consider the publicly advertising procurement opportunity that I just mentioned, but also that when we have consecutive single bid awards for a particular purchase, that in the next time that we solicit that, we have to publicly advertise it. So I don't have I should have had an example off the top of my head, but say we are procuring a site work construction project. We have 2 or 3 vendors that we typically use. We solicit quotes from them. If the last couple of shelter pad installs that we were doing, only one contractor, the same contractor, kept coming back with quotes, and the other 2 said they weren't interested or too busy. The third time, the fourth time or third time that we go out to bid that, we would publicly advertise it to see if there might be a site work contractor down in Middlebury that wasn't on our bidders list who would be interested and able to provide that work. So it's really promoting the full and open competition section of the federal regulations. Similar to Title VI and EEO, this did not result in the finding. This was just an initial deficiency identified in the review. We updated this policy and sent it to the reviewers, and they said that this satisfied their requirements, and it was taken off from the list for the exit conference. Any questions?
No. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I have a question going back to the equal opportunity, employment opportunity. I understand Nick is the officer in charge of this, but this seems like this is a hiring issue more than it is a financial issue. So I'm wondering if that's so, that how Nick is involved in the actual hiring process, if any.
I see the forms, so I don't necessarily have to be involved as the EEO officer in the direct hiring, Paul. It's more so of making sure that the chief executive officer is aware of our current goals in the EEO program and things of that nature. I will say that they frown upon the human resources officer being the EEO person, which is probably, why we don't have it set up that way, because that to me would be the better fit. But they frown on that, and the individual needs to directly report to the principal. So it got put on me because I think the previous finance director was the EEO officer as well. So I'm certainly willing to give it up, but I'm happy to take it on as well if needed. So and I'm getting more educated as we go. So hopefully, hopefully I'll do better next time. We won't have any findings. So
I'm just looking at the goals and the issues that are HR related. And I'm curious as to whether the policies and the goals impact the quality of the hires that we make. Are we bringing people on board that we are afraid will not pan out, but we have to hire them in order to meet our goals?
No, we're not
What do you
doing,
say?
we're bringing on the qualified applicant.
yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on any of these 4 elements? Dan Courier points out that in the GMT EEO plan, John Moore is listed it as the EEO officer. Thanks, Dan.
Where was that listed at again?
Page 48 of your board packet. Have a look at that org chart. If it's now Nick, you might want to update that.
Wow, it is. You're right. I noticed that too. Thanks.
Yeah, it's just
Noticed it and didn't store it.
an old org chart. So we'll have to just get a new one in there.
We have updated the org chart, Nick, so we can just take that document that we provided for the reviewers and replace the old one.
48. Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for editing that on the fly. And Catherine's hand is up.
Thanks. Ton of work by everybody. Wow. I'm just wondering for the item where we had a repeat finding, if we could just put a marker on a year from now and get an update as to how the implementation of the new processes and trainings are working, so that we can show as a board that we are continuing to pay attention to this repeat finding item.
Most
I think
definitely.
that's
Definitely do
Yeah.
that. And the final report for the triennial will identify a date for us to follow up with the FTA and demonstrate the implementation. So we'll bring that date forward to the board.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And then I'm prepared to make a motion for all 4 whenever you are ready as chair. If that would be helpful.
It is helpful. Just make sure nobody else has any clarifying questions or inquiries. All right, Catherine, you're up.
I move that we ratify and accept the changes to the Title VI plan, the GMT DBE program, the EEO program plan with the replacement of the new org chart and the purchasing policy as presented by staff.
A second.
Thanks, Henry. Thanks, Catherine. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Wonderful. We've all kind of said it already, but this is an enormous amount of work and the detail is impressive. And I really appreciate all that you're all doing to make this happen, to follow up as quickly as you have and to be as thorough. So thank you very much. Moving on to a line of credit, I'm going to turn that over to you, Nick. And I'm going to say this is not the first time we've had this conversation. This is just the next step in the process.
Yeah, so this is the legal part of it. So I am in turn going to turn it over to Ed and ask that he explains exactly what we're going to ask for today from the board.
Good morning,
Ed
everybody.
should be here. Yeah.
Okay, so we got a couple of things here. First up that I will discuss is the borrowing resolution. The borrowing resolution is something that the commission needs to pass in order to, I guess, inform the public that it's taking these actions. GMT is a little bit different because it's not a traditional municipality. Typically, municipalities can borrow in anticipation of taxes. So the way that we set this up is essentially it's anticipation of the taxes that the member municipalities will receive that they then need to turn around and pay to GMT as part of their assessments, which essentially translates to the same thing because both of those are commitments by one government entity to the other. And so recognizing then in the resolution that GMT has the authority in understanding that there is some need because of the current state of the world in the country and the state as regarding financing, M&T has agreed to extend this line of credit if needed for operational costs, and this resolution would authorize Nick and his team and anybody else, including the general manager at GMT, to take whatever steps necessary to secure and utilize those funds. So that's the resolution. And then the opinion letter more or less reiterates what's in the resolution. And that's, I think, more for the bank purposes to let the bank know that GMT has the authority to do this. And then if they don't, then they can blame the lawyers.
And so I think that just for the board, I may have created some confusion by using providing a suggested motion in my read ahead. I would ignore that and use whatever motion Nick or Ed is suggesting in the board packet.
I'm sorry, Clayton. I don't know what motion you're talking about.
I sent a read ahead to the board that included suggested possible motions for each of the action items, and I'm just letting them know to ignore the one that I crafted for this item.
Okay. All right. Got it. So I am happy to answer whatever questions the board has about either of these two documents. The next step, if the board approves these, I'm sorry, there is one thing that I wanted to bring up. We have one person at our firm that deals with finance issues and is certified by the Vermont Bond Bank to do so, and that person is not me. It is my partner, Brian Monahan. Brian, well, I drafted these, but Brian ultimately is the one that's going to sign off on them and did the final drafts, which you're seeing today. So Michael from the bank, who's on today, had asked for a couple of other documents which are referenced here, which is essentially the note. And we have a draft of the note that we've circulated to Michael. But this is all a long way of saying there's a date in the resolution that says that this is going to be signed today. It's not going to be signed today. So I just ask that the May 20th date at the bottom of page 2 in the last paragraph be stricken to whoever moves the motion so that it can be signed on any date. We expect it's going to get done in the next few days, but unfortunately, a lot of the financing gets done this time of year, and not trying to make any excuses, but Brian's been really busy with other things, and then he has to deal with all the financing stuff on top of this. So, but we're going to get it done. Sorry for rambling on. Happy to answer any questions.
Before we ask questions, I just want to share that Williston, there's a typo in where I'm supposed to sign, because it should have a T in Williston.
Okay, we will take care of that.
That's not an important thing to say, but I've noticed it, so I'm sharing it. Other questions for Ed or Michael? Go ahead, Tasha.
I am, and sorry my camera's not on. It's freezing at my house, so I have a hat on and stuff, so apologies. Question, Ed, is it tax anticipation note? I know that members of in a municipality need to pay their property taxes. Don't municipalities have the option to opt out from GMT, and is that a risk?
Well, this is this is for monies that have already been committed, is my understanding, that have already been assessed against the municipality. So, I mean, I guess the municipality could not pay, but I think that there would be a legal remedy for that. I mean, it would be the same legal remedy for anybody not paying an obligation that they're owed, any entity or person for paying an obligation that they're not owed. In other words, first we'd go to the municipality and say, you guys need to pay because you promised us. And here's where it says you promised us. And then the next step would be, if we couldn't work it out with them, to go to court.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Make sure I don't see anybody's hand.
All right.
Okay. All right.
So I guess the motion would be to approve the resolution with the, amendment suggested to strike the signature, the sign-off date on May 20th, and also to correct the Williston spelling. Mike, did you have anything? Sorry.
I'm happy to make a motion that we authorize the signing of this resolution with the amendment striking the May 20th date, with the understanding that it will be completed in the immediate future, as well as correcting the spelling of Williston.
And I'll second that.
Thank you to you both. Any further discussion? And Ed, I think you were asking if Mike from the bank had any comments that he wanted to share.
No, Amy, I think Ed covered it nicely. So thank you for giving me a few minutes. So I appreciate that.
Okay, wonderful. Any other further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstained? All right, the motion passes. Thank you, Ed and Michael, for putting this together, and for Nick for getting it started so that we have a plan for when we might need one.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good one.
All right,
Thank you.
enjoy this sunny, beautiful day in Raj's world.
Take care.
Our next item is looking at community engagement committees, which is fun to think about. Not said sarcastically at all. So I'll toss that to Clayton.
Hey, everybody. So as folks know from our previous meetings, we needed to shift from our JEDI committee, the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, to a more generalized community engagement committees. And so one of the things that we did is that we drafted a rule, which is in the board packet. And this draft rule would essentially allow me to create engagement committees. And what I'll do is I'm going to share my screen and walk you through the rule. It's a pretty short one. And I had it open before. Now I got to figure out where it's at again. So sorry about that. So while I'm looking, I will try to look and talk at the same time. And there we go. And so one of the things that would make this a bit different from the way we handled JEDI is that we would have more local participation. And so you'll see that that is one of the big distinctions. And let's go now to, oops. And are you all seeing the GMT rule 2?
Yep.
Excellent. And so this is short It is just a page and a half. What it does is it walks us through the authority that the board has to establish rules. It establishes the purpose of our community engagement committees, which is to have two-way communication between GMT and our partners, whether those be riders or local partners. It covers the basics of our service, from route design, fare structure, stop locations, amenities, rider experience and safety. And establishes that these are purely advisory. In the area on coverage, it shows that these will be required in the Chittenden, Franklin, Grand Isle, and Washington counties. We are recommending that seasonal service be optional for these engagement committees. And so one wouldn't necessarily be required for Lamoille County, but we could move in that direction if we wanted to. Then this gives me the authority to set up these committees, and I'll set them up using the policy process laid out in Rule 1, where essentially I'll just issue a policy that says, hey, I'm creating a rider experience group in Chittenden County, or I'm creating a community engagement group in Franklin, Grand Isle County. And this will then establish the parameters of those groups. And of course, with the final thing there, keeping you all informed. And so I'm going to stop the share. One of the questions that the governance committee had when they reviewed this at their last meeting was whether it should be open or follow the requirements of the open meeting laws. I reviewed this with Ed Adrian, and he is of the opinion that even though it's strictly advisory, and even though I am setting up the general manager would be setting up these committees and not the board, that these still would follow the new requirements of open meeting laws that require even advisory boards to follow some of the components. There is, for advisory, there are, like, we don't have to have meetings be both in person and online. We don't have to have video of our meetings available, afterwards. So it's not quite as many requirements as a non-advisory group, but there will still be some open meeting requirements. And frankly, I think that that's probably for the best. If there are situations where people are going over their experiences and we want to have some sort of, privacy, we can figure out how to do that at that time. So what would be looking for the board to do today is to adopt this rule. It would be the board's second rule, so that's why it'd be Rule 2. And then once this is approved, I will be issuing a policy to create a rider experience group in Chittenden County and a partner group in Chittenden County. We'll be working with Catherine and Amy on perhaps converting a partner group that is already meeting in Franklin County into a GMT advisory group. There's some pros and cons there that I'd like Amy and Catherine and I to discuss. And similarly, we would be establishing something in Washington County, but we'll be coordinating that, and whatever we coordinate in Franklin, Grand Isle, or Washington County will be looping in RCT and TVT, and to make sure that they are okay with moving in that direction. So happy to answer any questions, and then hope that the board is willing to approve.
Thanks. Questions? I wasn't kidding. I love the idea of this. I think it's a really kind of rich opportunity to make sure that rider experience and the systems are working as best as they can. Susan.
Yeah, I agree with you, Amy. I think this looked good. I just had one question about the Transit Partners Advisory Committee. The policy identifies, some potential partners here. And I'm just wondering how the actual final list will be developed. And
Think that we'll be putting out a call to people who would be interested in joining. And certainly we will be reaching out to the players that we have unlimited access agreements with. We'll be reaching out to folks that we provide a lot of sales to. And certainly I would imagine that we'd be reaching out to folks who operate in the transit advocacy world, such as CATMA, Locomotion in there. And so I think that we're going to be kind of expansive in who we bring to the table, and so hopefully people will volunteer with their feet and be willing to join.
excellent, thank you.
I'd also recommend us to be sure that we are reaching out to partners and riders who either serve disadvantaged Vermonters or are thinking about some of the groups that we work with to get rider feedback and former JEDI committee members and so on and so forth. I just want to make sure that we're as representative as we can of the public that we serve. Other thoughts or questions? If none, I will entertain a motion to move forward.
I'll make a motion that we move forward and adopt rule number 2.
Thanks, Catherine.
I'll second.
Oh, thanks, Susan. You beat Mike to it. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? All right. Thank you all, and looking forward to moving forward with that. We are, wow, perfectly on time. Our next agenda item is to discuss labor relations, and that will likely be done in executive session. And so I always mess this up, but we need to have a motion that a finding that, oh, I don't know. Who would like to? I forgot the process always.
I will introduce a motion finding that premature general public knowledge of our bargaining position for our next urban operators agreement would place GMT at a substantial disadvantage.
You're the best, Andrea. Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
Thanks, Paul. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Next, we have to move into executive session. And before we do that, or whoever's going to do that, let's identify which staff or others are to be joining us.
And so I provided a sample motion that included the staff, but I always forget that we need somebody to actually run the Zoom meeting. So I would like to add Jamie to that list. And so the motion for executive session to discuss labor negotiations would include Clayton Clark, John Moore, Stephanie Reed, Nick Foss, Jimmy Johnson, and Jamie Smith.
Thank you. And I'm looking at so many documents, I forgot to pull up that suggested language. So I've got it up now. Thank you for that. Anybody like to make a motion to move into executive session? Oh, John isn't here. Thanks, Jamie.
Christian, I'd move to introduce a motion to enter executive session to discuss labor negotiations to include Clayton Clark, Stephanie Reed, Nick Foss, Jimmy Johnson, and Jamie. I'm blanking on Jamie's last name. Jamie Smith.
There you go. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Andrea. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. I should also note that alternates are welcome to join as always. And so we are headed into executive session at 8:45 a.m. and 24. We have exited executive session at 9:24. No action taken. Our next item on the agenda is a GM update from Clayton, who sent us a summary via email and has, I don't know, Clayton seems to have run away. Are you still in the room, Clayton? Okay, we're going to flip that to do some committee reports. I can tell you that governance meets on Friday, so they didn't meet. And leadership met last Monday. And there was nothing that we discussed that wasn't already on the agenda or discussed today, except an item in Clayton's summary, which talked about VPTA findings, which we'll hear about in a little bit. And workforce, I think, didn't meet, correct? Is that right, Bob?
Workforce didn't have a quorum, but I had informal conversations with the staff of what we do forward. So,
okay, thank you. And performance?
We did not meet either.
Okay, and finance?
Well, complete the circle. We did not meet either. And I'm not sure, Nick, did you send that finance report out to everybody or just finance committee?
Just finance committee, Paul, but we can distribute it to the board as well. If that's your pleasure.
All right, folks are dropping like flies. So Clayton, why don't you jump into your GM update and then we'll boogie out of here. I don't know that we have quorum anymore.
I think we may have lost it. And so really one of the time sensitive things that we need to think about is the timing of our next sort of reduction round. And I'm proposing that we wait until October and November to do that. And if anyone disagrees, please make sure to let me know, and then I'll engage back around with Amy and Andrea to see if we should do it sooner. I think that my impression is that we got a lot of public momentum early last fall that we were not able to sort of carry into the legislative session. And I think that doing this later is better. Similarly, VTrans has asked us to do it later because I think that they are looking to be able to respond more quickly to the situation and not have it kind of be an open question for 4 or 5 months, what these big reductions may look like. The other items are very important, but I also see that it's 9:28 and so don't want to keep folks longer.
Okay, any other questions on what Clayton has said or sent? I urge you to take a look at it. And I want to say that there's the VPTA findings, and I am super impressed. We did discuss it at leadership, and I'm super impressed with the speed with which GMT has responded to those issues and have shifted both staff and resources to make sure that we are getting it right. So I really, really appreciate that. And those are my comments for the day. Does anybody else have any comments, commissioner comments? Mike does. Go for it.
Just one thing for people to keep in mind, CCRPC has come out with housing targets. I think it lays into our longer term version. I would encourage people to look at it. And basically, if we're looking at density and to get a feel for it, you'll be seeing that they have targeted 60% housing growth over the next 25 years in Burlington, Essex Junction, South Burlington, and Winooski as sort of their urban areas, and then sort of their suburban areas of law. I just say that it's a useful document, looking way long term in terms of how we think and make decisions in terms of where we would see things evolving. But it was just mentioned at our city council meeting. I thought I'd just share that.
Thanks. Okay. there are no further comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Paul. Any further comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone saying nay? We're good to go. Thank you all for being here, for all your engagement and thoughtfulness, and to staff for all the work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Amy.
you.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks all.